Speaking of things I heard today being compared to 9/11, Godzilla,
Jesus Christ.
but the 1998 movie, don't know what the context was behind it. But
Man, that movie would have gone wild if it came out in 01. Or like summer of 02.
They destroy the Chrysler building in that movie.
Eyebrows. Oh my god.
No.
I kind of wish
All
one
right.
of us selected Old Boy to be their movie because it has incest in it.
What?
Maybe that's how we'll open the episode.
Jesus Christ.
Have you never watched Old Boy before?
No, I'm not answering that question.
What are we talking about that has incest? Star Wars?
Your mom.
Are we gonna
Star Wars
should I
does have
Sean's mic? Should I meet Matt's mic?
Should we
I
mute
don't know.
Matt?
Is he still talking about incest?
Oh god, I'm gonna start now. Hello and welcome to Culturally Illiterate One-Shots, a podcast where four friends, quote unquote, talk about the movies that left a
We're not
mark on
friends.
them. I'm Jake, and as a small child, I collected paper cups and buttons. With me are my friends and fellow co-hosts.
I'm actually Jake, and I'm gonna.
Are
come
you
up
sure?
with
No,
fun fact,
no.
New fun fact, because my fun fact is that I'm a sleepy boy, and that my goal is to look like a '90s sitcom character. That's what you get for trying to steal my fact,
I didn't
Sean.
steal your
and my
fact.
name, Sean.
I just read
I-
who I am.
He stole your identity.
I stole your identity. Can you give me your social security number, please?
Do you guys want to know mine? It's imagine.
696.
Imagine I just said it.
420-69-6669.
Anyway, my name is
Anyway,
Jake.
I didn't
I've
say
already
that.
fucked.
Fuck
I've
that.
already
Hey!
fucked Sean's mom, and I'm gonna fuck Sean's dad next.
My name's Jason, and I think Easter candy is the best holiday-based candy, you fucking prick.
Hey, excuse me, we're all Jake here.
I don't give a shit.
I'm
What?
This is a
Squidward.
pro jelly bean.
Sean.
This is a pro jelly bean podcast. Are there any other Jakes I should know about?
Are there any other Jakes I should know about on this podcast, bitch?
What time do we record? That was my meow, because I'm just always bugging y'all about that.
Jesus Christ.
Any-
Uh,
I'm a little unhinged for you, Sean.
I'm Sean. I don't have a fun fact except that I'm fun. I'm very fun. That's my fun
That's a
fact.
fact.
My second fun fact is that I think I've yawned 72 times since we started recording.
Hey, you're a sleepy boy, too.
Yeah, I
I-
fucking am, dude.
I
I could use a
understand
cola.
it. I feel that. I just want this week to be over. I want to sleep.
It's Thursday night,
Oh,
Poppy.
dude, I feel you.
I know. All right. So today we are talking about the movie that I chose last week, Whisper of the Heart. I will describe why I chose this movie. It is. I
Let him
will announce
cook.
everything.
Sean's doing
I-
the things that they tell you not to do when you're writing an essay in like middle school. I
In
will
this
do.
podcast, I will.
Yeah.
On this podcast, I will.
Fuck
So-
Sean's parents.
I will. What the fuck? On this podcast, I will.
I've given up
Your
on
mom.
saving the appropriateness. We've lost people. People came into this to like they saw the title and were like, "Let me talk about." You haven't even said it yet. They're gonna be like, "Let's hear these guys talk about this movie," and we're like 5 minutes deep, and all I've done is talk about how I'm deep in Sean's parents.
5 minutes deep, and you're already 5 inches deep in my parents.
Let's not get generous. 5 inches. That, if Jake's 5 inches deep in your parents, that means he fucked each of them twice.
I hate this.
I don't
You know
even
what
like
the
it
best part
either.
is? The best part is this is all Jake's fault.
I know. That's the thing. Usually Jake has someone else that he's like, "Oh, you guys are giving me so much to edit." This is all his own doing.
I
It's
know.
not all my
This is-
own doing.
It is. It is all my fault. Me, Jake Walter.
Why is everyone?
It is me and only me that is
Jake.
responsible, and I, of course, am Jake.
God, this is good. Oh, I love this already. This is such a train wreck. All right, so
Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
What
move
are
on
you-
before he defends himself. Move on.
all right, so
What are you,
oh my
Israel?
God.
That's getting cut. It's getting cut.
Oh God. Anyways, so I chose this movie because this movie I watched it around the same age as the main character in this, and this movie is a movie I have a hard time separating my personal feelings of and my opinion of as well, but is also one of like the most relatable movies in my life. So I chose it because I wanted to share that with you all. So, the movie we are talking about today, released on July 15th, 1995, is Whisper of the Heart, which was written by Hayao Miyazaki and directed by Yoshifumi Kondo. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to fucking destroy these names. Shot by Atsushi Okui. I hope to God that one was right. And music by Yuji Nomi. Jesus Christ, this is gonna be a fucking wall of text. I shouldn't have done this to myself. God, this is what I get for being American.
Yeah, we are American and we speak English here, so sorry.
It stars Yoko Hana as Tsukishima Shizuku, or as she is played in the dub, Brittany Snow, who is known for being for X and I believe Pitch Perfect. Issei Takahashi as Amasawa Seiji, who is also played by David Gallagher in the dub. We have Shigeru Muroi? Ah, God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna go to hell. As Tsukishima
This is what you get, Sean, for picking a weed
the
movie.
I'm gonna die. Asako? Was there a person who had that name in this?
Now you're seeing the real. Now, so when I put the outline together, I also did the like inverse. Like obviously their names are like the last name goes first, which we don't do in English.
Like I think that's one. I think that's one of
Asako his grandfather.
Is it? Wait, is this?
No.
Wait, sorry.
No, I think this is either her mom or her dad. This is either Shizuku's mom or dad.
This is the real reason we put off starting the app.
Oh God, why? I'm gonna just. Anyways, Takashi Tachibana as Tsukishima Saya. God, please kill me now. Shigeru Suyuguchi as Fumberuto von. Oh wait, that's Baron von Baron Humbert von Giggingen.
Yeah, I didn't even give you a break there, and I put in the Japanese.
Oh my God, why?
Because fuck you, that's why.
Keiju Kobayashi as Nishi Shiro and Meiko Kayama as Harada Yuko. Oh my God, who is also played by Ashley Tisdale. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, I lived, I survived. Yeah, so I'm assuming none of you before this have heard about this movie at all, aside from Matt, probably.
That is racist of you to assume that Matt's familiar.
Matt's familiar because I know
Matt is not even Japanese.
I am familiar with the title
before.
Okay, well, Matt, it was a lucky guess, all right?
It was a coincidence.
No, I'm just joking. I'm sure Sean's not racist.
Are you sure?
Well, I don't know. I'm not inside that head of yours. Anyway, I've never seen or heard of
Nothing
this
about that
movie.
last several minutes convinces me that any of us aren't.
Hey, we do our best.
We try real hard. Anyway, so Matt's the only one.
I mean, I've heard the
Right?
title, but I couldn't have told you.
I hadn't
And
heard
I've
the title.
and I've seen that cat in my nightmares before, but that's it.
Which one?
The
Fat
Baron.
one?
The
Not the
Baron,
fat
the
one.
cat man, anthropomorphic like animals, especially like pet animals, like a dog or a cat, like really make me uncomfortable.
So do furries make you uncomfortable? I mean, that's actually I take that question back.
Yes.
That's always a yes.
Yes.
Oh God. So Matt, when did you first know of this movie or watch it or hear it or whatever?
A few years ago, I was doing I was grazing over not Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli's filmography, and then I just saw this film, Whisper of the Heart, and I just wondered to myself, what the fuck is Whisper of the Heart? I have never heard of it before. And so I decided to give it a watch. And it was a cute little film, I thought at the time. And I didn't really give it more thought. And I'm glad that I'm rewatching it because it's definitely much better with a fresh point of view. And yeah, that's how I knew it. It's just general curiosity.
I remember. So when I originally watched this movie, I think I was in 8th grade, I believe, 7th or 8th grade. And to preface this, at that time I started to get more, and I remember I became nostalgic because when I was little, I had watched Spirited Away as a kid and like a couple of other Studio Ghibli movies. I hated Spirited Away as a child, by the way, because it creeped me the fuck out. And I remember it was one of the movies that I had watched on like a road trip with my family when we were going on vacation. So my sisters were obsessed with, or my older sister was obsessed with it. I did not like it. And so I remembered it. I remembered I really liked how it looked. And so I started going back and figuring out where the movies came from. And then I started watching more Studio Ghibli movies. And this just happened to be one of them that I watched along the road that I didn't really expect anything from. And I fell in love with it because at the time I was trying to determine whether I wanted to, and obviously this is not like I say this knowing full well that it's kind of dumb, but at the point I was trying to determine whether I wanted to write for a living or not. Because a lot of at that time frame I wanted to learn how to write creatively, or at the very least I wanted to be able to, when I got older, write for a living. So a lot of this movie talks about writing as an art form and just the creation of art in general, and that was kind of like, to me, a lot of the feelings in this movie were a lot of what I felt when I was that age, and how scary it was to try and talk about your passions and making art as a whole, and how terrifying it was. So this was like, there are a couple of people, and I've read a couple of like scholarly articles about this movie and like comparing it to a bunch of things, but like one of the people that I know that like connected with this movie that really made me open up again as I was older and see kind of like how much I loved it was there's a guy on YouTube called Schaeferless Productions, and like he made a video about how much like Whisper of the Heart was like his favorite Studio Ghibli movie, and how like it was so personal and so to him, same with a lot of other people, but like kind of like the idea of like this came during my formative years, and I just related to it so much, and it became such a relatable thing to me that I like instantly fell in love with it. So that is why I chose it. And that was kind of like, after I watched it as an 8th grader, it kind of like, that was also around the time too that I started to get into creative writing and having to speak more in person and like have people read my stuff. So it was terrifying, but this was one of those movies that kind of helped me like learn how to deal with showing people things that you are passionate about and things that you have maybe put a little too much of your personal self in. So yeah.
This is an episode that I think Sean, or I don't have like the official numbers, but I'd have to guess Sean, over the cumulative like nature of this podcast, has done the least amount of talking. And I really
Ouch.
going to, I think, no, I mean, ouch, and not like I figured the podcast would be better for you talking, but I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts on this, because as someone who had never seen a second of this movie before, a couple days ago, till was almost 26, and as someone who I think who grew up like me and Sean, for anyone who like is unaware, listening, have been like best friends since we were 5. But I have very distinctive, a lot of wonderful memories of spending my whole life with Sean. But I never, like, the way it hit Sean is like I've been anticipating hearing, because I can see already as he says that why it did. But like from my point of view growing up, and again, I didn't see this as a kid. I saw it like 2-3 days ago for the first time. I never had a moment of like, oh, is this what I want to do with my life? And are people going to, how do I talk about what I want to do with my life? With something like writing, with something that's like a creative output that can be looked as impractical as like you fantasizing. So I think a lot of this movie kind of like went clear over my head, just because it's not necessarily emotions that I have a direct relation to, but I know Sean does. So I'm definitely very intrigued to just kind of hear what resonated with Sean. I mean, I'm not, no offense, Jason and Matt, I'm interested in your thoughts too. But this being specifically Sean's pick for one shots, and it being something that I wasn't guessing, that because Sean loves Howl's Moving Castle, so I was like so sure that was going to be Sean's pick. So the second it wasn't, I was like, ooh, I'm intrigued. But anyway, that's just my preliminary like going into this episode and this movie, how I feel.
Well, yeah, so one of the reasons why I also don't show this to a lot of people is because it's a very, I take it like really personally, because a lot of this movie is just like, this feels like me. Like I've never felt so seen by a
She's
piece
just like
of
you for real.
media shit that's just like me for real. But like on top of that, it's not a movie that's relatable to everybody, and like it really comes into play. Like you don't have to be a writer related to this, like to relate to this movie. A lot of this movie has to do more with like, where does your form of art come from? What is it like to create art, and what is it like to then share that art, and how to not be absolutely terrified to do that, and like how do you deal with the thought process of taking a path in life that others don't usually take. But yeah, so I'll get into the plot, because we'll move this along. So the movie starts with us following Shizuku Tsukishima, a 14-year-old student at a high school where she is best friends with her friend Yuko. She lives in Tokyo with her parents, who you don't need to know the names of. Their names are Mom and Dad. And her older sister, who has been away but is recently returned, named Shiho. One evening, while she is looking through the check, to preface this, Shizuku very much loves to read. And one evening, while she is looking through the recent books she has checked out from the library, she discovers that all of them have been checked out by someone named Amasawa. Over the next, or actually, you know what? One of the things that we also don't start out with this that I want to mention too is that this the movie starts off with a zooming shot over Tokyo while playing the song Country Roads. And I have two things to say about that, for thematic reasons, and also because goddamn, it's Take Me Home Country Roads. The interesting choice of choosing a song about country roads and having it juxtaposed against a concrete city of an urban sprawl is an interesting choice. And on top of that, it not even being sung by the original singer of the song, Uh, does anybody have any feelings about that?
I don't like that song in its original form, so
Really?
it's really just something that makes me cringe when I hear it, regardless of who's singing it and the context. So, that was my feeling. I was like, wow, everything that was being shown to me I thought was so beautiful, and then I was like, this song really bothers me. But that's just my
Yeah,
own personal bias.
Sean had mentioned to us that this song played a big part in the movie because when you were explaining to us like the dub versus the sub of it, which like I watched the subtitled version. I don't know what y'all did, but Sean was explaining to us how like if you watch the dubbed version, it's kind of funny because they like an English language song plays such an important role in the movie. So then when you're watching the dubbed version and they're talking about it like it's not in the same language that they're speaking. So I like knew that this song played a role, but I kind of forgot. So like it tunes in, I was like, oh, right, that. And then the other thing that caught me off guard is like my preconceived notion of the movie was, and I've seen very few Ghibli movies before. I've seen Spirited Away, I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, and I've seen oh my god, what's the one that just came out?
Boy and the Heron.
Boy and the Heron, thank you. And those obviously take place like so heavily in like a fantasy world. So my brain was like, this is gonna be like that. And like other than a couple of like daydream sequences, it's not. It's a grounded movie about a little Hallmark girl, who wants to write because she likes to read, and that's very nice. But I thought it was going to be super fantastical, so it definitely like set a tone early to readjust that expectation, seeing kind of like what Sean talked about with like the juxtaposition of an urban sprawl and the concrete roads as like the protagonist kind of reputs the song with country roads, which Jason is wrong about and is a lovely song.
Oh, you like that song?
Yeah, John Denver, baby.
That's actually one of my favorite parts, though, was when she was chasing the cat, and then she lost track of it. And then she says, I believe the line was, oh, I thought the story was about to begin. I felt like that was like a super meta moment, especially for Studio Ghibli, because it seems like that's like an exact scenario where something fantastical is about to happen. Like, let's see. What's it good?
Well, so like
yeah, like
that,
Alice in Wonderland, like Alice.
Well, yeah,
in
I was gonna
Wonderland,
say that
right.
that specific scene is specifically meant to conjure up the idea of Alice in Wonderland because it's like Alice following the rabbit versus Shizuku following the cat. With that essentially being what kicks off the main part of the story and changes this from being more of like slice of life-ish to having something going on. Ugh.
Yeah, well, like Jake said, I've only seen The Boy and the Heron in terms of Studio Ghibli movies.
And you fell asleep during it.
And, well, I did fall asleep during parts of it. And that said, not because it was not good, because I was
sleepy.
a little lost and I was a little sleepy. Though my memory of it is purely just batshit insanity. And this movie was like so not batshit insanity. But there was a part of me that I was like, well, maybe is there gonna be a twist where it gets into that point at some point? And I was like, no, it's just a nice, quaint movie.
Yeah, so this is also one of the things that's interesting and that I think shows a lot of it. Like, not all of Studio Ghibli's movies are like big fantasy things. This is like one of the couple that they have that are very down to earth. One of the other ones that I like that is just a slice of life is called Only Yesterday, and this movie is very much a lot similar to Kiki's Delivery Service minus the being a witch. So like Kiki's Delivery Service is kind of similar too, in that it's very slice of life and about one girl's life over a course of a couple of days versus the, being something super fantastical, at least until the end of Kiki's Delivery Service. But like that aside, but like, yeah, one of the things that I wanted to talk about too, and because of the country roads thing, a lot of the reason like that song was chosen originally. Especially one, it's what the fuck is her name? Why can't I remember? Shit. Who's singing it? Who the fuck's singing it? Who the fuck sang this song?
Are you talking about the character or like the actual like singer?
The actual singer. Why am I forgetting her name?
Okay, and her. So you're not talking about John Denver.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about John
Not
Denver.
the
Alright, I just wanted to
original
make sure-
artist.
I just want to make sure I wasn't on the right page for whatever point you were eventually getting to.
What the fuck is her name? Olivia Newton-John. There we go. Jesus
From
Christ.
Greece.
So one of the things that's actually interesting is the idea of a lot of this movie tends to do with Shizuku. One in the sub. It's her translating the song "Country Roads" so that she has something to sing at her high school graduation. The idea being that she's taking the lyrics and then making either a pastiche or a parody of it, depending on what she's writing and what they show at the time. Concrete Roads being one of the parts that she writes where she teases about the song, them living in Tokyo, and writes it more as a parody. Versus having the song sung by somebody who's doing a cover of the song itself and not the original song itself. The reason I bring that up being that for a lot of creatives and for a lot of people versus starting, a lot of the thing that gets you into whatever your art form is, whether it be songwriting or singing or in this case writing, a lot of what people, especially as young kids or just in general when you first start and you're not really as talented, or I shouldn't say talented, but like you aren't as like skilled with what you're doing, you typically tend to do, in one of the easiest forms to start with is parody. You see people like Weird Al and stuff where they start by essentially taking something and then transforming it, something that already exists. So I think it was an interesting selection to go with. Instead of the original, like having John Denver singing it, you're choosing something that's a cover, something that somebody had already written and had taken and transformed into the idea of like somebody else singing and having a cover is the idea that it's transformative in some way, shape, or form by having somebody else sing it. So I think it was an interesting take to do that. Also because two, oddly enough, Olivia Newton-John's version of Country Roads is very popular in Japan for some reason. I don't know why.
Hey,
Seems
sometimes
good.
things just take off.
Maybe they're Fallout fans.
Is that in poor taste, Matt?
I also just don't get I feel like it wasn't meant to be, but I don't get the Joe.
Well, the only connection I know between Japan and Fallout is not a great one, which is why I'm a little
Well,
taken.
Japan Fallout and Olivia Newton-John singing Country Road.
Well, that's what
I don't know what I'm trying to figure out where
there
that
has to
fits
be a
in.
connection that I'm just not aware of, but
I've never played Fallout, so is her cover of this in Fallout?
I think Matt just had like a brain. Did you have a brain fart, Matt? Are you running at 50%?
Ow!
My back just cracked
Didn't
like
they
crazy.
use that song in one of the Fallout trailers?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I've never
If
played
they
a single
did, you
Fallout.
just
I
made a
have not
reference
watched the
that
show.
no one else here got, but
I mean, it's quite possible Matt just made a deep cut that's like really funny
Well,
to
maybe
someone,
he
but
did,
not
but I'm just
us.
saying. I listened.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Take Me Home, Country Roads was used as a song for a Fallout 76 trailer. So it wasn't meant as like a
Nuke joke.
like dark sense of humor thing. But I ended up
I didn't know the correlation between the song and the
promoted.
Fallout series.
I accidentally promoted a really shitty Fallout game, so could we please move on so we don't have to talk about it anymore? Because Fallout 76 is ass.
No, I want you to continue to explain
Sean's
this
movie.
joke.
We're talking about Fallout for the rest of the podcast.
Matt, I want you to sit here and continue.
I haven't watched the show yet. I heard it's good.
I've heard good things too.
I don't know.
Good things about Sean's parents.
Oh my god.
Fallout's the one with the little cartoon guy in the blue and yellow thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where my
Pip-Boy or
knowledge
something?
ends.
There's a game called New Vegas. That's where my knowledge ends.
It's pretty good.
Oh my god.
All right, go on.
So yeah, over the next few days, Shizuku encounters a boy who annoys her and teases her, making fun of her country roads or her concrete road lyrics after finding her book dropped in a park where she was at. Um, Eventually, while walking through the city, she finds a cat riding a train, and Shizuku follows it to discover an antique shop run by Shiro Nishi. In the shop is a cat statuette nicknamed the Baron that Shizuku takes a look at, and Shizuku is ecstatic about finding the place and describes it as a place where stories begin. Shizuku later encounters the boy again at the antique shop. He shows her the workshop where she discovers that he is learning to make violins to pursue his dream of becoming a master. The fucking why is it all so many words I can't pronounce? God, is it luthier? Fuck me. I've made a terrible decision. She begs him to play the violin for her, and he agrees, but on the condition that she sings along. The pair perform "Take Me Home, Country Roads," a version of it that she herself wrote, and the boy is revealed to be Seiji Nishi's grandson, and Shizuku and Seiji finally befriend each other. I don't know if there's anything that I have that I can really add here at this point, but like I always like the at least they don't get into the story yet, but I always like the idea of the Baron and the Baroness, which they bring up the Baroness later. But the idea of it being like a couple that's separated and all they have to remember each other by is the Baron, and these little weird fucking statues, after being displaced after presumably World War II. There's like a surprising amount of detail to some of the characters, this being like Nishi and his whole thing, which God, he's such a sweet old man.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I do like him. I don't want. I feel like I'd be remiss not to bring this up, even though it's probably going to displease Sean. But I did watch this movie with my fiance Priya, who was very, very convinced that he was up to no good with our lead, and that's where I'll leave that. I said I think he's just a nice old man, and she insisted, and I said I don't think so. I don't think that's heading this direction. And just to
That
like
would have been a
ruin your
stark shift.
That would have been
like ruin Sean's childhood a little bit for a minute.
That guy was just like a freak show. That would have been
all of that is to say I agree. And like my favorite scene in the movie is when he has when he's like falling asleep and he kind of has like the vision of the Baron and Baroness coming together. And he's eventually like awoken, but he has that like, you know, I'm talking about the dream, and he's in the little chair, and I actually thought he was gonna die for a second. Like I thought he was like going to heaven.
Well, tell
fucking
your
zonking out
fiance
for eternity
to get her fucking brain out of the gutter.
I know, right? That fucking pervert.
Stop and like have a little innocence left in this world, and you know,
have some childlike wonder like Sean.
The pure heart and intention of our senior citizens. That's right, Priya. We're coming at you. And I'm dropping a diss record at you.
We don't like you.
We don't trust you.
You're not dropping any records.
We don't trust you, Priya.
Yeah. So cute old men. Cat statues.
Just kidding. I love you, Priya.
The other thing I also ouch. The other thing I also like, in that they show this off, but like the idea of somebody being a violin maker is not something I would ever think about.
Ever. Same.
Okay, no, I'm glad you said that, because I thought it was like the perfect like thing for him, because it was like
he's not like the other boys.
He's not like the other boys.
Such a unique thing that is also like so like being able to hand make a violin is an absolutely like intricate, beautiful skill to have. And like so it's such a like it's not something you would think of, but it is something. It's like you find out that he makes violins and you're like, wow. Okay. You know what I mean? So it's not it's like something a little off the wall that you wouldn't expect, that it adds a little bit to it, I think.
The one thing I also really like, and that I like that this movie does, is kind of the idea of this is brought up in, I'm goddamn referencing scholarly articles, but like this was one of the things that I saw. I forget who wrote it. Somebody wrote it, but like they essentially described the movie as combining Japanese collectivism and Western individualism, because a lot of this movie is about the idea of like, um, in a lot of like Japanese society, a lot of your life is centered around being for the collective whole and like taking care of each other. So like big pushes on like, keeping things clean and orderly, and like I know one of the things that I always remember that was like really interesting to me that I've heard about, is that like typically from time to time when going to like vending machines, which are also a big thing in Japan, people will buy like say two of one drink and then leave one on top of the vending machine for the next person, uh kind of deal, to give an idea of like what I'm trying to terribly describe.
No, that's
um
that's really cute.
but like, and then when it comes to a lot of Western ideology, a lot of us are very much on an individualistic track of like me and my own and caring for myself, and uh doing things like for your like you come first, essentially. You yourself comes first. And a lot of this movie, especially with like Shizuku and Seiji's relationship, is about them having completely different passions, and having this very individualistic approach towards what they want to do with life, but coming together for collectively helping each other and pushing each other's passions further. And not even in like, obviously, well, by the end of this, it's one of the very few Studio Ghibli movies that decides to like very heavily go full in on having them be in a relationship, and most other Studio Ghibli movies do not do that.
Yeah, the tension's there, but that's it. They
This
tease you.
movie, they tease you. At least in this one, it seems like at first they genuinely start out being friends, and it's very much about like pushing each other to do better. And one of the things that I love that they talk about is that like, you can have so many things where so many people like say look at your work, and this goes for all kinds of art, but like Shizuku looks at the fact that like Seiji's making a violin, and she goes, holy shit, that's amazing, I've never seen somebody make a fucking violin before, especially from their own two hands. um and all he can do is look at his work and say like, well, it's not that great, which fucking that in it itself hurts a lot, because it's so real, I guess. The idea that some essentially other people can look at your work and go, wow, that's incredible, but somebody who like really knows what they're doing and is really trying to do like get better, all they can see is their flaws and how they can get better. So to have those two things where it's like, with Shizuku's whole thing it's writing, and with Seiji's it's making the violins, they're so the writing maybe isn't so specific, but like the idea of like these two very specific passions that like when you look at them from the outside and maybe you don't understand all the intricacies and you're kind of just looking in, to use something that looks amazing but it should be I don't want to say half-assed, but like there might be a lot of things that aren't like perfect about it, and the idea of not being, it's just interesting to imagine looking from the outside in at somebody else's passions like that. Like, I mean, like Jason, I can bring up. I've heard some of the things you've made, but I don't fucking know how to do that shit. So, like, the idea of like somebody looking from the outside in, it's just an interesting thought process. I mean, I can like play music, but listening to like a band or somebody else, it's like a whole different level, and it's really amazing to try and even like compare to a degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
It's just
I
a
can't. I completely agree, because it's like, I mean, and I think of it too as like, I mean, when I was in school, I was in like choir and shit, and it's like there are plenty of times that I can think of where like you know, even my teacher would be like, "Oh yeah, you guys did great," and then I'm like, "What, really?" Because from fucking where I was standing, I could hear this shit going wrong and this shit messed up. but it's one of those things where, you know, in the greater sense, you just have a lowered rate of objectivity with your own performances. And this movie, I think, really does a beautiful job of showing that in an understated way, so it's not in your face about it, of like, oh, be up on yourself and don't be hard on yourself and don't do this and that, but it's like just a very subtle, casual way of broaching that topic.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
one of the
kind of.
biggest. Oh, sorry. Shoot, you go.
No, you're fine. I actually kind of had a question for you. I mean, again, I'm happy to hear if Matt and Jason have an answer for it as well. I just specifically know this movie means a lot to you. Is this something that, like, as you were kind of figuring out, like you talked about it being something that you watched, figuring out, like, do I want to be a writer? Is this something I'm passionate about? Is this something I believe in myself to do? I mean, is a story like this something that you come back to, or whether it was then or now, and feel like it kind of remotivates you to believe in yourself a little bit and kind of like go out on that limb? Because the characters in this movie both deal with a lot of like your two leads deal with a lot of that self-doubt. But I think, like, as you and Jason were kind of going back and forth about that as a piece of art, like I found myself having really conflicting emotions during this conversation, because like I also like jokes about Jason's music and it not coming out aside, I'm very impressed by like the things that Jason can come up with in their mind musically. I can't comprehend, and that is both very impressive to me, but also very like I think sometimes that comparison can make you feel lost, you know, like on your own. If you're watching someone who you see is talented, and then you wonder, like, well, why can't I think it's easy to fall into like, they're doing something that I can't do, and they're being sort of self derogatory about it, whereas I can't do it at all. Like watching a movie that is so meticulously crafted and has those themes, like, is that something that, like, how do you feel that has like impacted what you do? But also, like, I mean, has that evolved at all since you were a kid? I'm just very interested in how you come at this, because it's so different from myself.
Oh yeah, this is a movie that I know for myself that I come back to constantly, because when I watched this when I was 14, that was when this movie really hit me, because I was like same age as Shizuku, going through like the same stuff. You're like a teenager and everything's like fucking terrifying and nobody takes you serious.
Was 14 the first time you watched it?
Yeah, I was around the age of like,
okay.
I was around the age of, I can't remember if I was in 7th grade or 8th grade, so I was around 13 or 14 when I first watched this movie.
Okay.
But like, this is a movie that I constantly come back to because of the idea of like, one of the biggest takeaways for me is that, like, to preface this again, I write for a living, and Jake does the previous job I used to do in terms of a professional setting, but like in that job I used to write articles and stuff on top of doing like general robotic work, which fun, love it, 10 out of 10, love data entry. But like currently I also I do copywriting for a living, essentially. So a lot of what I do has to be creative in some way, shape, or form, and still has to come from me in, again, some way, shape, or form. It all has to come from my brain, and it has to be creative in some form. But like when I was first starting out, and first like writing, because I liked writing as a kid. I loved to do it since I was like 8. But by the time you're like a teenager, that's like the first moment where like people are asking you like, oh, what do you want to do when you're older, and what are your plans in life, and you start getting all those questions, and obviously you're a fucking teenager, you don't know what the fuck you want to do.
Right, which is so fucked. Like, poison our youth to be forced to think about their future constantly.
And like one of the things to me that was like terrifying but also comforting about this movie is that it constantly asks those questions and doesn't shy away from the idea of like it's hard. A lot of this shit is hard. I mean, like their whole metaphor that they have that they draw throughout the movie, and I say this because also I'm a person who loves gemstones. Like I go to fucking I go out in fucking nature and I smack rocks with a hammer to find fucking gems.
He does real life Minecraft.
I do real life Minecraft. But like they take Nishi shows Shizuko a geode and tells her to look inside it, and there's a barrel inside, and he says that people are essentially like that geode. There are gems, there might be gems inside you. You just have to really dig down deep to find those gems. Inferring that essentially by continuing your passion and training and really working hard at it, you have the potential to find some really good gems, and you have the potential to find, like, you know, barrels are also there are purer forms of it that come in the form of emeralds. So like you can dig down deep enough and you might find something that's really valuable and something that like can, you know, change you know, the world, for lack of a better term. So like the idea of something like that was genuinely beautiful to me as like a metaphor. But then on top of that, it's also the idea that Shizuku brings up, well, what if I look deep inside myself and all I find is a fucking rock? And she then decides, well, no, I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyways. I think for one thing, them not shying away from the fact that like you can try and do all you want in your certain passion and you can try so hard, but there's always the chance that you're not going to find anything, and that's always the case, and that's always something that's there, and it's always looming over you. It's terrifying. It's genuinely terrifying that creating an art form, there's always the chance that either A, you're going to never find something that is genuinely valuable that nobody will ever take value in, and even if you do take value in it, trying to make that your life and your work and your career is something that's completely different. Especially when you're trying to, you know, do this for, like I said, a living. So like that whole metaphor to me really like speaks to me in the way that like, look, sometimes treading that path isn't easy, and it's like I said, genuinely terrifying. But sometimes it's worth it to even just look and try, because you don't know what you could find. You could find something that's fucking fantastic, and again, sometimes you could just be a rock, but that's the risk you take, and if it's something you're passionate about, it's 100% worth it if you do dig down deep enough. And that's one of the things that I always come back to with this movie that I love, is the idea of like it doesn't shy away from like taking an art form and going against the grain. Like one of the things that I love about this movie is you have on one side Shizuku, and on the other side you have Shiho. Her sister Shiho is somebody who's done everything right in life. She's got her own apartment. She's doing multiple part-time jobs. She's capable of paying to be out on her own and living her own life away from her parents and her sister. She got good grades in high school. She did all that. Whereas Shizuku is partway through the movie, as she starts to focus on her passion, and that's all she's focusing on, she's failing her grades, and her parents are worried, and everyone's concerned for her. And it's the idea of, the one thing I love that her parents do in the movie is they eventually say that, like, you know, obviously they take her genuinely seriously when she says she's trying to do something that she's really passionate about, and she doesn't tell them what it is, but she says that I can't tell you what it is until it's finished, because I have to do it within this time frame, because if I don't do it within this time frame, I'm not good enough. And it hits me so hard that, like, one, she has supportive parents in this movie, which is very hard to come by, especially when they go like, hey, obviously this is something that's really important to you. We'll allow you to do it, but just remember that going against the grain of what life expects isn't always going to lead to success. And while like I understand that, like, for people who want to do art, that's never really a concern. It's what you want to do, and it's something that you're passionate about and what you love. But taking it from a realistic perspective, it's not always the best thing you could do. And it's, again, something that's terrifying to jump into, but it's something that's worth jumping into either way. Which again, I say that as coming from somebody who started off writing as a kid and now to a degree writes for a living. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't, wanted to do that to begin with. So like this personally, why this movie hits me so hard is because I'm not writing novels or anything by any means, and I still love to write as like a hobby by myself, but it was like always something I wanted to do. So to kind of like see how that comes out in this movie and how I can connect with that so in such a raw way, it's really hard to find a movie that even reaches close to that or finds a way to like portray that in such a manner that it makes sense to people who may not even be into, who may not even have an art form they're passionate about, or maybe somebody who doesn't even, partake in any art form whatsoever. That's the end of my rant.
Yeah, well, that's
Thank
very
you for
well
that.
said.
Thank you.
And I think, in addition to that, I think, to your point, I think this movie's really good at showing the feeling that I think a lot of people, almost anyone who's passionate about anything, but particularly in art form, feels, which is like the feeling of, they can, failure is one thing, but living with the weight of like, oh, well, what if I had given my best effort and really tried at that? Because you feel the internal issue within our main character of like, I have to do this and I have to give it my full attention and all that, you get that feeling that I think many people in that boat can relate to, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I think so.
And then like one of the other things that I like too that this movie does, and that like specifically in the process of like, one, like with writing, a lot of what you have to do is like research. It's not just I wrote this down and it's fictional and fantastical and all this shit. Like one of the first things that Shizuku does when she learns that like she's like, all right, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna write. Is she goes to the library and she starts researching about rocks. My goddamn dream.
Right.
And because a lot of, even when it comes to fiction, a lot of it comes down to you have to do a fuck ton of research. You don't just sit down and start writing shit because you want to. There's like so much research involved. It's annoying. Because like you don't want to write shit and then have it make absolutely no sense, because in the end what she actually writes makes no fucking sense. But like the having to do so much research is like a genuine part of writing that like at the very least I've seen other movies where they try and make like they talk about writers and shit, and like you'll see it and it's like a Hallmark movie where they're like, I write, and this is one of the few movies where I've seen them like really get into the nitty-gritty of like what these people are doing are actually things that are serious, and we're taking these passions and what they're doing seriously. And while like this movie is a lot more like, I don't want to say it's Hallmarky, because they take a lot more of the stuff in this seriously than like a Hallmark movie, but this is a comfy, cozy movie about like this, in the end, a romance movie. But like I feel like it's something that takes art seriously and tries to put it in the best way possible, make a message about that. And then on top of it, like I feel like this movie also has a strong message of like, with what I said with the geode and the barrel inside it, there's also the idea of like what we write is us. What we put into our art is us. It's not, there's not really much of a separation, because personally in the end it is a part of us that we are putting out there to some degree. Like when you see Shizuku and what she writes in the end, writes partway through, which this movie does also have two sequels technically. One of them is heavily inferred to be what Shizuku writes, and then another one is a live action movie that continues this, which is weird. I have not watched that yet, and I don't plan to, but like the idea of, I forget what I was talking about.
Oh no.
You were talking about like you're like,
oh yeah,
that you put yourself into what you make.
You're putting yourself so far into what you make, and that like on top of that, one of the things that like, which is why like it can be so terrifying to like put stuff out there, to like have somebody else read it. It's because you feel like when somebody else reads something you wrote, it's an attack against you. Or like just in general, when somebody criticizes your art, that it's some sort of attack against you. When in reality, it really isn't. But like it does a pretty good job, I feel, of like showing that there's not much of a separation between what we put out there. And then on top of like I said, Shizuku's also putting like a lot of her experiences into her writing. You see her putting like the Baron in the story. You see her talk about uh various fantastical things. She makes a whole story about the lapis lazuli. One of the scenes is in her, they show a little fantasy thing of like what she's writing, and like the first things that she does is she's walking through this hallway and she pulls out a gemstone, because for whatever reason in her story she's supposed to be finding the right one. She pulls out the rock and it's just a dead bird, showing that like, you know, you can continually look for the right thing and end up with you can continually look and dig deep for your passion through your passions, but sometimes you may not find what you're looking for, and sometimes it may just be absolutely nothing, like a rock. But like
Charlie
the idea,
Brown on Halloween.
like Charlie, I got a rock. But the idea of like something like that to me just hits so close to home in like when it comes to making art in general, that it really, that's why I find this movie so relatable, is because it talks so much towards that. And so how much of our, you know, your art is personal. I mean, like I say this knowing that like I think Jason is the only person who does something like in terms of an art form, but like I feel like Jason would have some semblance of an idea of what that feels like. And Jason, you can speak more to it, but like it's just one of those things where it's that if anything, the person I was most interested when bringing up this movie was Jason, because of the themes of this movie.
Oh, well, I absolutely, like, when you say that you felt seen in this movie, I get what you're saying, because like I absolutely was watching this and I was like, oh, I can see, I was like, this is, I feel like this movie sometimes. And I was like, and I feel like I can see how Sean, knowing Sean and knowing that you, your love for writing and whatnot, it was like I can see how he may have related as well. So yeah, I get what you're saying, and I agree with what you've said thus far. Yeah, that's all I really got at the moment.
I don't think you necessarily even have to be a creator
Oh no,
to
yeah, I think that's
relate
yeah.
to the
just
themes of
like
this movie.
poignant way to that you can kind of relate to it, but I think there's also a lot of themes that are just about like self-acceptance and finding yourself.
Exactly. It's also, you know, it's not necessarily a critique on what I'm about to say, but it also has something to say about the strive for perfection. I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to, because we all want to be perfect at what we want to do, whether that be living life, doing well at work, doing that hobby you always wanted to get started on. Expressing yourself is dangerous, and in some capacity, whether you think it's embarrassing, it doesn't fit your character, or you're just afraid of exploring something new. And I feel like this movie just demonstrates that you might not get anything out of, you know, putting yourself out there or go doing something new, but it's always worth a try, right? Because like I
Right.
said
Yeah,
before, like
that's what I
you
mean,
gotta
like the feeling
you
of
gotta
like
polish the
what
stone.
if I had tried?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
Oh
going
God,
back
yeah.
to
That
the
I mean,
field metaphor, where like you never really know, but you might find a gem, right? You might find something beautiful underneath all that rock, and after chipping it away, you might find a gemstone that, you know, might still might look like shit because, you know, it just came out of the ground. But after some polishing, it'll look so beautiful that you wondered why you even questioned why you even you questioned why you questioned yourself, why you questioned the effort you put in when you see this beautiful product in front of you. And that could be associated with many things. Like for me, for example, it could be cooking, right? Jake says I'm a great cook. I don't necessarily think that way because there's always room for improvement.
Yo, listen, Matt, I'm a picky eater, and I still like the food that you make. So I feel like that's got to count for something.
But there's always something more, There's
always a
something
next level.
more. There's always a next level, and then a next step would be creating something of my own, making something by myself for it to be something only I can make. And that is something that I strive to do. And it's dangerous because, well, one, if I fuck up, that means I'm going to have wasted ingredients or going to have to eat at least a pile of garbage for the next couple of days. And two, I might set the house on fire. But you might still find something beautiful, right? And so that risk is worth it. And so that's why I strive to do, and that's what I aim to do in my life.
Yeah,
I was just gonna make, in terms of like Matt was talking about with like the push towards like wanting whatever you make to be perfect, whatever that may be. I have like a really kind of out of left field reference that I think is really applicable today. So the day of recording this, Ludacris's episode of Hot Ones came out. And
I think it is.
I don't know. You think I'm going to reference Fast because it's not Fast related?
I'm waiting. Speak.
Okay, I'm interested. It's okay. Like, so Ludacris was on Hot Ones today. Today meaning like the day we're recording this.
Oh, okay, not the one I was thinking of. All right, never mind.
Yeah. So, and he's a very well, like, just like really well spoken, if you ever heard him talk, he's really he's the type of dude that's like just him talking just like almost puts you in his zone. But he was kind of discussing his music and talking about like almost how he doesn't strive for perfection anymore, because if you get everything just so right and so fine tuned, it stops being interesting and people will get bored. And he's like, I want to try to find the line right before it where it's still me. And I just think like the discussion we're having about, I feel like that is potentially a little bit freeing when talking about the discussion of like the pressures of like I have to make something that is just flawless, because when it comes down to it, like whether you're talking about like he was talking about music, but if you want to pull like Matt's example where like everybody has that thing, like I feel like everybody has like a food, like, whether it's like
everybody has those
snack
days,
or waiting on a dish cooked that's like not quite the norm. You know what I mean? Like you meet like the person who's like, yeah, I dip my hot Cheetos in cream cheese, and you're like, that's a little weird, but like you like,
I would dip my nuts in some cream cheese.
But if someone who's like, I kind of like insert thing burnt, and that's like not technically the way to do it. Like that's not like that way. That's not getting you a Michelin star. Like it doesn't like if it's registering for you, but there's like that one little thing that's like a you twist on it. And I think that can apply for a lot of stuff. But I don't know. Everything we're talking about was really pulling me kind of back to there, and I don't know that I'm explaining it well, but I do think that I think it can become very paralyzing for people. And speaking from just like my own experience, to like not even think you're bad, but know that you're not perfect. Like even if you have the degree of confidence of like, I don't think it sucks, but it's not. You know, I didn't write the great American novel the first time sitting down. Like, and if you like can reframe your goals to almost like have it be representative of yourself in that way, if not even if it's not perfect. I don't know. Like I said, like listen to Ludacris talk about it. He did a much better job than me, but I thought it was really like a refreshing point of view that I hadn't really heard before, talking about like when you strive for just pure perfection, you're gonna get something really, really generic.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
well, because then you're also just trying too hard to be something else in you know, your influences, because that's what you see as perfection.
yeah, I mean like one of the things that Matt also mentioned is like hobbies. Like even just hobby, especially for me, I can't anything that's creative that's a hobby, I can't start it. It's so goddamn hard because every time I look at it and I'm like it has to be perfect or like
Right, that's the
um
thing.
like one of the things I've always wanted to do just as like I feel like it'd be fun is like making jewelry to some degree. Um but like that's like every time I try it's like no matter what it's I have no experience with that. It's gonna look like shit at the beginning. So like how do you
Right.
how do you make something like that a hobby or how do you just like start something like that and not feel like oh my god this looks like hot
Uh,
garbage as soon as like
Absolutely. Like yeah, I
and
totally agree with you.
I speak about this from more of my personal experience, but like how the fuck do people who do like physical like art forms, like anything that has to do with like sculpting or like modeling, how anything that's like physical like that absolutely terrifies me because I can write down shit and make it sound good, but holy crap, to like craft something out of like nothing in such a way, it to me is like baffling.
Yeah.
I I can't fucking do it. I'll never understand how people can do it. I think it's like inspiring in and of itself. It's like it's super cool. I'm being
Yeah.
licked by a ferret. Oh boy.
Uh, and that's the thing. To your point about like not being able to have like creative hobbies, like that's like absolutely to a T. It's so hard to even just do it for fun, do things for fun, because it's like, and especially at this point to where I'm so like conditioned to where like one of the main factors in why I haven't released my music is because I fucking rewrite the lyrics like it's like I'm getting paid by line, and it's when I'm not getting paid at all. So like I'm just in the practice of just constantly being like, well, no, this word would rhyme better and this would sound better here and da 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 da. So then it's even if I'm trying to do something as a creative release, it's just like, well, fuck, now I just don't want to do anything.
Yeah, it starts to become so stressful, especially when it was like I remember one of the big things was that in high school I took my second creative writing class, I think towards the end of high school. And that was one of the moments where like I had to go up and speak and like talk about my what I wrote and I had to write it. And everybody in that class, I say this to not be like a humble prick, but like I got a lot of praise in that class for what I wrote. Um, I that was the first time where it felt like what I was doing was right to some degree, but uh, it's terrifying to try and like push any of that stuff out and feel like it's never perfect or it's never what you want or it's never right or like I can do this better or I can do X better or Y better or whatever. It's just it's so difficult to get over that hump and a lot of it is and this is why I like that this takes place for teenage that the story in this movie is for teenagers too because a lot of when you're a teenager is you're looking for approval of things and you're seeking for a lot of just acknowledgement of like that what you're doing is right or that just knowing that somebody is like you're just looking for that approval or that acknowledgement in some way shape or form um or and it's so difficult like even then it's like comparison kills that stuff too so when you're like trying to compare yourself to something that's perfect it's so hard to be in love with the things that you actually want to do when you're stuck there comparing yourself to something and it becomes the bane of your fucking existence, because all you can do is sit there and be like, well, I'm not good enough. Like I speak about this in a positive way, but one of the things that I remember from like being a kid was like Jake and I have grown up a lot together. But like Jake knew so much more about like comics and shit than me when I was little. And I would always be like, well, what the fuck? I like comics. Well, obviously he likes comics more than me. Well, what the fuck is why don't I know these things? And so like it becomes in some ways harder and harder to enjoy things when you start to compare yourself in certain situations, and that goes for hobbies to art in general. When I feel like a lot of what this movie does and says about enjoying what you're doing, but also taking it seriously to some degree, I really love that it just tries to have some sort of self-acceptance. And the way that you described the ludicrous thing was also great. I think that's a great way of putting it, of like having your own spin on the things that you're, putting out there. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'll continue this. We already talked about, so like, yeah, Seiji says that he took out books to follow Shizuku like a fucking stalker. And Seiji eventually tells Shizuku that he'll be leaving to Cremona to study with a master violin maker. She's inspired to write her book. She spends 2 months writing her book while her fucking grades go down the gutter. We don't need to know about the story she writes because it's meaningless. When her story is complete,
Well, the animation is beautiful.
Oh, but the animation is beautiful. The animation is beautiful throughout this movie. For something that doesn't have much going on, the art's goddamn gorgeous. And I say that as more as like a slice of life thing. God, I wish I lived in the fucking antique shop. I dream about
Yes.
that. I love the clock so much because it's so gorgeous, and like the idea of like it having a story behind it, like it's a fairy tale. I
Oh my
love
God,
that.
I thought that was one of my favorite scenes. It was so cute. The clock was so pretty looking. This was so pretty, this movie.
You should watch more Studio Ghibli films, Jason.
You should suck on my fucking nuts, man.
I'll do it. Oh,
I love you guys, man.
one nut for both of us.
And if you guys didn't suck my nuts, I wouldn't love you anymore. Take that as you will.
So yeah, prior to, Nishi promised to read Shizuku's full book. After Shizuku completes it, Nishi reads it and gives his honest assessment. Shizuku bursts into tears at the stress of the last 2 months and turns into relief. Nishi consoles her and tells her the real life story of the Baron. When he studied in Germany in his youth, he found his first love, a woman named Louise. Nishi discovered the twin statuettes of the Baron and his female companion, the Baroness, in a cafe. But as the female one was away for repairs, the shopkeeper would only allow Nishi to buy the Baron if Louise agreed to hold on to his companion so they could be reunited. However, they never reunited, and the cat statues remained separated forever. Deciding she needed to learn more about writing and that she wants to attend high school, Shizuku announces to her mother that she will resume studying for high school entrance exams. The next morning, she wakes up and sees Seiji outside on his bicycle, having returned a day earlier from his trip to Cremona, Italy. Seiji tells Shizuku he will return to Cremona after attending high school in Tokyo. The two ride Seiji's bike to a lookout and watch the sunrise, where Seiji professes his love to Shizuku, and they propose that they should be married in the future, and Shizuku accepts. Obviously, that's like two teenagers doing the most fucking teenagery thing in the world. It's like so cringy, but okay.
But to them,
Sean,
it's
I'm
real.
engaged.
me
I'm
enjoy my
engaged to my high
special
school
life.
sweetheart.
Fucking nerd.
It can happen.
And also, even if it can't happen, they're kids and let them live their happiness.
There are two.
Sean.
It's their life. It's now or never. They're not gonna live forever. They don't live when they're alive. It's their life.
All right,
The two
Mr. Bovine Joni.
The Big Jersey poet.
The two things I love from this movie that I kind of take away from the end bit, especially, is that like throughout the movie, a lot of the rest of the people in the movie are genuinely taking the emotions of these teenagers seriously, which I think is something that is very lacking today. because, like, hot damn, the amount of emotions and emotional turmoil I was going through as a teenager in general is fucking awful. So, like, to imagine having, like, a family or, like, people around me in general, like, in this movie that are, like, there for you and also, like, such a big thing always made me like, damn, I wish I had that. I wish I had, and I kind of did have that, I guess, a little bit. But
But
like,
there's always ways that you want to
this,
look at things as better.
God, I wish I wasn't depressed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
But and then one of the other things that I always like about this was that the whole their two passions feeding into each other throughout this movie of like Seiji and Shizuku and them like both striving to help the other person, do better, especially with their whole relationship. It's one of those things where it's like it's such a wholesome thing to have somebody in your life who really wants to see you do great. And it's not just like, well, I realistically wish you would go to school and yada, yada, yada. But, like, in their minds, it's them genuinely being like, I want to see you do good. I want to see you do good. I want to see you do well in your craft, and I want to see you hone it. And I'm not going to stand for, I shouldn't say I'm not going to stand for anything else, but, like, that's what I want to see in my life, it's just the idea of somebody's passions intertwining and like the idea of people looking so closely at that, and just having somebody to share your passion with that like will always accept it for what it is and isn't going to be like, well, that was shit, is just such a genuinely lovely thing to think about. And like I don't want to say I don't have that in life, but that's one of the things that I always like love the idea of like having somebody who's like it'd be so easy. And I remember dealing with this when I was a kid. When I said I wanted to write, like people kind of like look at you weird and kind of laugh at you a little bit because they're like, you want to be a fucking writer? That's kind of fucking weird.
Right. What, you want to be fucking like F. Scott Fitzgerald now or something, brother?
So like to see in this movie people
we got the
taking
next Mark Twain here.
Mark Twain. So like to see people like listen to them and take those emotions seriously when that's what they want to do, and understanding that they're really seriously passionate about this, and it's not just like a one-time thing. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I love that, and I wish more of that existed in real life. Obviously, I like that this film also takes a more realistic approach to it by saying like, hey, things might not always turn out the way you want them to, but like I do love that it's like these teenagers, while they are young, are seriously like if interested in following these passions and are so genuinely for it and so genuinely ready to go that it's just something that I don't see much of. I don't want to say in film, but it's like I don't see much of in real life people really pushing for people to go for their passions as often. Most of the time when you hear something about that or something about like somebody wanting to do an art form, it's always like, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do that?
Do you want to be broke?
And like, bitch, no, but like, I want to do this shit.
I want to live my life. And I don't want you to judge me for it, alright?
It's now or never.
Shut the fuck up.
You're not.
But yeah, that's essentially the end of the movie. I think I've talked way too much throughout this whole thing.
No, you talked just enough, Poppy.
This is exactly what I wanted.
No,
I think this.
You're fucking big, brother.
This is also like the duality of Meg, because we started with like a 6-minute cold open at me like banging Sean's parents, and then we've had like a very in-depth conversation about artistic insecurities. Like I think it captures what it means to have. But talking about like having support systems, like that's like I think having a good support system and friends, like that's part of it. Is like I'm gonna tell you that your dad's looking real tasty, and then I'm gonna listen to you talk about why this movie means what it means to you. You know, because I think that's like the relationship they have. Obviously, it's romantic, but like no matter how. I think one of the strengths of this movie is like it does kind of set a like I feel like especially if you watch it young, it sets a precedent of like what you should be looking for, the type of support you want to look for in a romantic partner, in a friend, in family. Because they do, like Sean said, like really push each other and believe in each other, and like they really don't stand for it when the other one kind of puts their own work down.
Yeah.
And they fuck each other's parents.
It's a very sweet thing to see.
But yeah, the other thing I do want to briefly mention too is that there is a sequel to this movie that Studio Ghibli also released called The Cat Returns, which follows the Baron and
Title your sex tape.
The Cat Returns is such a hard title. It's better, like, I liked it better before I knew the context. Not even saying the context makes it worse, just saying that, like, the Cat Returns is, like, out of context insanity.
The Cat Returns is nowhere near as serious a movie as this is. It's actually just a very cute short movie that has, it's just more supposed, the movie is about, like, what Shizuku wrote, and a newer version of what she wrote is what it is supposed to be. And I recommend that too, because that one's a bit more fantastical and a lot less. This movie, I've heard a lot of people describe this movie as boring, and I think that's more just because it's a slice of life and it has a very slow pace. But like, if you want something that's completely different, its sequel is definitely all different.
If you want something that's totally nothing like this.
I think Sean has bad taste and wants something else.
If you think I have bad taste, watch Grave of the Fireflies and then cry about the existence of humanity.
Devastatingly sad.
You want to watch two children fucking die?
That was the first fucking, like, anime content that I had ever watched in my life. Like, I never watched any anime shows or movies or any of that. The first time I ever watched any of that was that fucking gut-wrenching film. It was at like 2 a.m. on Thanksgiving.
First you ever seen Scream of the Fireflies?
What did Dustin put it on?
Dustin was over for Thanksgiving, and we put it on at like 2 a.m. and we were drunk. And Haley was there too. It was really good.
It is really good. It's not something that you introduce someone to anime with, like, hey, it's like someone who hasn't watched
2 a.m. It's like you're drunk on Thanksgiving.
It's like someone's first ever movie being The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. It's just not
exactly.
It's not a welcome to the medium.
Oh God, I fucking watched that movie once and said never again.
Like, you should watch.
Here's the first comic. It's called Mouse.
It is a beautiful,
I heard that you like World War II movies. Have you seen the Schindler's List? You should watch that first.
Schindler's List?
I heard you've never seen a film before. Schindler's.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that was my introduction.
Yeah.
I'd never really thought about how weird that was.
You never thought about it?
No. Well, I think it was just like such a weird experience in totality that I was like, okay, I'm watching this like depressing war movie on Thanksgiving. I'm drunk. It's fucking a.m. And so I don't even think I processed the fact that the movie was fucking a weird pick.
My God,
I can't stop laughing.
I just fucking.
I gotta work oh fuck AM into my vocabulary.
Oh fuck AM. Goodness
Dear
gracious.
God. I just,
Oh my God.
that's such a fucking Dustin thing to do. Jesus Christ.
No, because he was talking
Yeah,
about it.
that's-
He was like,
That's
Sean
our
and
friend.
I
That's being
cried
friends
our
with him in a
eyes out of
nutshell.
this movie. I'm putting it on.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Well, anyways, I guess we go. Have we done the recommendeds for like the? Do we recommend
No.
this movie or not for the other
We
ones?
have
I think.
not done that
Yeah,
yet.
we did.
We
No,
did?
but
We did.
he's asking if we did it. He's asking if we did it for the other one shots, which yes, we did it for the other
Oh,
one
no,
shots.
yes, we did, yes, we
we.
did.
If you want
I
to move
get-
on to that, we can do that now.
We
I am a sleepy boy.
we might as well do that now because we've been doing this for like how long? It's been a fucking like hour at least. It's been almost an
Yeah,
hour and
it's-
30
it's
minutes.
It's been
and,
an
like,
hour. It's been an hour and a half. Obviously, the recording will be. I'm sure there'll be cuts, but because I'm a little fascist with my edit.
Okay,
Yeah,
Hitler.
Hey, Hitler.
All right. So do
Hey,
do you
Hitler, have you heard of Schindler's List?
You'd
don't
really
know why I
like
said
it.
you really
I
love that
really
movie?
like it.
Such a-
You'll love that movie.
Such a fun, happy
Funniest
movie.
sentence I think Matt's ever said, just for no reason.
I don't know why I said it.
Hey Hitler, you seen Schindler's?
This was X this episode, but our collective rec could be Schindler's List, which I actually haven't seen.
I've never seen Schindler's List.
Oh no!
We're all going to
next
hell.
Thanksgiving at 2 a.m. I'll get drunk.
Pissed drunk and watch Schindler's List.
Schindler's List. What a great idea.
I think we need to watch a depressing movie about World War II at 2 a.m. drunk every Thanksgiving now. Sorry, was this 2 a.m.? I can't remember. Was this 2 a.m. like of the technical Thanksgiving day, or like Thanksgiving had lapsed and it was technically Black Friday 2 a.m.?
Can't remember, but I think it was the former.
Okay, I think that sounds right to me because I was like in the house, because this was at our mom's. Right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like I think Dustin kept trying to put it on and I was like, I'm not doing that, and went to sleep.
Yeah, you were like, I'm too tired to watch a movie right now, and went to bed, and I sat there and watched the whole thing.
Priya's like doing dishes over in our like kitchen right now, or like she's like cleaning the kitchen a little bit, and like I have headphones in, so she's only hearing like when she's home and we record, she only hears like my portion of the conversation, so she is like really confused right now.
We went from Schindler's List.
But I mean, what were we doing? We were on like the wrap up, right?
Yeah,
Did anyone
we were-
do that? Did anyone even do that yet?
No.
No.
No,
I was
okay.
gonna
I mean,
say obviously.
Okay.
Obviously, yes, I like this movie, and my favorite part is the fucking. Speaking of art, I have no qualms with this movie. Recommend. Eat my ass.
Why were you
We-
so
we fair.
aggro?
It's sleepy time.
He said, "Fuck you. This movie's perfect."
I mean, I'd recommend someone to watch it. I think it's something that's going to be like, I think Sean's kind of right in that, like, I think for like some people it may be a little slow paced because, and even for myself, like slice of life movies or hangout movies, like those two like subgenres are like very hit or miss for me. So like I'm sure it won't be for everyone. And I'm a little bit like, again, I'm a little conflicted on the movie, as I mentioned earlier, just because like it was the type of thing like I think I was not fully I was a little bit of a fuck you to it, just because I was like, I'm not in a headspace to confront why I haven't followed my dreams, because I haven't necessarily. And like even I think of late, like what have I neglected of my own personal needs? Like, do I feel spread thin? So I mean, it's a movie that you want to be in the headspace for, and it's a movie that I want to like go back to and rewatch, and like when I'm in different moods, I think, and see how it like impacts me differently. But like in the greater like broad sense of just like, do I because that's like a half answer. Is like, but so I recommend you watch it, but my disclaimer is just like, think about how you're feeling before you do, because if you've listened to this whole episode, like it's gonna have some kind of impact on you, and just be ready for that. Because like it could be something that's inspirational, but it's also it asks tough questions about like a person's internal drive to create things. And like my favorite thing is it's pretty. The establishing shots and the buildings are pretty.
It
Also,
is
the
very
cat was
beautiful.
fluffy and fat.
Oh, the cat was
Cat
so
was
fluffy and
fat.
cute.
Anthropomorphic animals the worst part.
Shut the fuck up.
It's not
The only
a
time-
furry. It's not a
Oh my
fur
God.
design. Okay.
If we continue to
I
do-
didn't. Matt, it genuinely has nothing to do with that. My entire life,
He's just
that
a little
they
twit.
just visually upset me. And again, there's some exceptions. Like the Ninja Turtles are fine. The cat in the suit is not okay.
is like
What
wait,
about
wait,
the
wait,
cat
wait,
in
wait.
the hat?
What about
about
The
Cat
live action one is freaky. The drawing from like the book is fine.
What about
what
cats?
about shit? What is the fucking
Cats,
Oh
freaky.
God, cats.
Very freaky.
What was the fucking shit that Disney just put out a while ago? Fucking Judy Hopps and her bullshit.
Oh, Zootopia.
They're small enough and animal enough that it's fine for me. Like they don't really look like humans
Yeah,
at all.
they
They just kind of
lean
stand
animal.
up.
Yeah, they're
Wha-
just kind of upright and wearing clothes.
It's not an exact science, but there's a certain blend of human and animal that starts
That's
to make
the
me
noise
feel
Jake just
uncomfortable
made.
at a certain
Did you
point.
did you watch The Bad Guys with us?
Yeah, I
He
like the
did.
bad guys.
Who was there?
Was that
It
weird?
was stylized. It was stylized enough, so no. And like the
I'm
one
trying to
character's
figure out
like
where
a
the-
worm or some shit. Like that's not a. That's
I'm trying to figure out where the
they're
line is.
animalistic and style.
I'm
I- I think
animalistic
I
in
think they can't-
style.
I
Oh
think-
my God! Wait,
See, like,
wait.
alternatively, like there's a character in the Ninja Turtles comics I think named like Alloplex or something like that. That freaks me out. But the Ninja Turtles like themselves are fine. Splinter's fine. But like some of that maybe because like Splinter got to me early. So like I was a kid, so I was like, eh, Splinter.
I have another
Put that
Studio
on a
Ghibli
t-shirt.
movie that you'd probably totally love. It's called Pompoko. It's about tanukis that have massive balls.
Oh, I remember you told me about Tanuki. Okay, can somebody else do the wrap-up thoughts? Can we not psychoanalyze my feelings on anthropomorphic animals?
Oh shit! I forgot we're still recording. Oh shit!
Did you stop, numbnuts?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I just forgot we were
He was
recording.
just about to say a slur and he forgot.
Okay, let's keep it moving.
Anyway, so I loved this movie. I thought it was beautiful visually, and I thought the story was amazing and very powerful. I think it's gonna stick with me. I think I watched it at a good time in my life, personally, and I think I'll come back to it a lot. So I definitely recommend it. I think the best part is that the characters are just very relatable. They're some of the most relatable characters, I think, in any movie. I think the way they act and the things they do are, relatable to almost anyone in some way. My least favorite part was probably just that I just don't really like that song that much. But that's just because I just don't like John Denver. So my bad.
I make you watch a movie that's all about a song you fucking despise.
I don't even hate it. I just really find it unpleasant to listen to. It's in a style
Well, okay, I guess
that I
it's
greatly respect. I just can't do that song, man.
Well, I guess it's my turn. Unsurprisingly, I also recommend this movie. And I'm also going to say you should also watch all other Studio Ghibli films, including Grave of the Fireflies. Although, please watch it when you're mentally prepared enough, because I can't stress this enough. Don't watch it if you are depressed, because it won't help you. It will make you feel worse.
Better? That
No.
movie made me so happy to watch. It made me so happy.
Oh, you
I
know
only
what?
watched
If
it
you-
once.
Never feature that bitch with Oppenheimer.
If you want to watch something
Oh my
that's
God.
cozy and fun, watch Ponyo. Watch Ponyo. That's honestly, it's that or My Neighbor Totoro. That are my personal favorite Studio Ghibli films.
I gotta go back and watch Ponyo because I hated that movie when it first came out, and I feel like my opinion would change now.
It's just nice. It's just cozy, beautiful, and just really sweet.
That's how I would
Also-
describe you, Matt.
You know what I learned that I didn't think about?
Shut up.
So,
Oh wait, are we
This-
still recording?
yes, we're still recording, Matt.
Okay.
You're an idiot.
You know how what's his face plays the fucking Ponyo's dad? Who the fuck plays it in the dub? It's fucking wait, I'm gonna figure this out before it's too late. I have the internet at my side. Why is this doing this? It's fucking Liam Neeson. Apparently Liam Neeson does a fair amount of voice acting in a lot of things. He's done apparently a couple of video games. Did not know that. Also, he did fucking obviously Chronicles of Narnia shit. So fun facts for Ponyo anyways. But yeah, anyway, so I thank you to Alofet at ALOFETT for the podcast artwork. Good job. I didn't even write this and it's hot garbage. And thank you, Jason, for the podcast music. Jason, include your things like your penis.
My penis is right here. Here you go. And I made the intro outro music, and as this podcast is coming out on Friday, I'll have a song on my SoundCloud, The Upsides on SoundCloud. I'm not going to say the title of the song because I have to pick which song. And there'll be more songs after that at some point. So follow me on Twitter at @the_UpsidesPA and Instagram at @the_UpsidesPA.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for your wonderful, wonderful voice. Please follow Culturally Illiterate on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and subscribe to Culturally Illiterate Podcast on YouTube. You can also follow us at illiterate_pood. Is that still supposed to be there? I thought it was at illiterate_pod. Or did we never fix
pod. I thought I fixed it, but I must have missed one.
At illiterate_pood on both Twitter, Instagram, and Threads for more of us. You can also reach us at culturallyilliteratepod@gmail.com for questions and comments, and you can tell us how much you love us. We've gotten one email so far that we know of, or that I know of anyways. Whatever we cover next is to be determined, but we will be back for another episode in 2 weeks, so stay tuned.